Good afternoon, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives, and I've turned away the Halloween attire from last night with the glowing light and the lack thereof and the orange shirt to go with the suit and tie again because it is that time of day. But my inbox blew up with a couple people who are actively trying to understand the economics that we present here at Real Progressives. And one of the things that I felt was very important to understand is deficits. The idea of what is a deficit, why does a deficit matter, and is deficits always something that we want to run? And the answer is complicated. It comes down to you got to look at what we call sectoral balances. So let's take sectoral balances. It's a term you're probably not used to hearing. It's a term you probably don't say in your everyday conversations. So it's something that's definitely new to you. Think about sectoral balances as the equalizer on your stereo. Think about it like bass, treble, medium, whatever you want to call it, MIDI. And start thinking about it in terms of private sector debt, public sector debt, and rest of world. So when you think about it like that, and you look at the various levers, you have to understand a couple other terminologies that may or may not be something you're used to in your everyday conversation. The first one is leakages. What is a leakage? A leakage is any time your money leaves the economy. So for example, taxes is a leakage. Another leakage might be foreign investment or trade imbalance, etc. So money that's leaving the economy is a leakage. So how do you fill that back up? Well, you can borrow money, which would be the private debt, or you can go ahead and print money or spend money into existence, which is federal debt, because federal government is the creator of the US dollar. And then the other part of it is you can choose to bring manufacturing back home. So people are stuck in plants manufacturing goods and services, and everybody's trying to get it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, driving the wages down, down, down. Or you can choose to be a net importer, where you're buying other people's goods and services, driving their prices down, 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 the capitalist way, and then supplementing that with domestic spending from the federal government. So you have to realize that the economy is founded on several levers. So we build some shock absorbers into the economy because regular people can't print their own money. So that is where the Federal Reserve has come in the past, where they will go ahead and make lending easier for people to borrow money. But borrowing money is finite. You can only borrow so much money as an individual. Your credit eventually dries up. There is really a point where you cannot borrow anymore. And then you got to pay all that money back. That right there is because you are not the currency issuer. You are a currency user. And in this case, you're borrowing money from an entity that you have to pay it back to. Okay? So if you think about it like that, and you ask yourself, hey, should we cut the deficit? Well, the deficit is an annual scorecard, like a football game, right? So at the end of the game, the scoreboard resets to zero. It's an annual deficit. There's not like some perpetual deficit from here and all the way back to the founding of the nation. That's a joke. That's a crock. It's not true. Okay? So an annual deficit is the difference between what our government spends and what it quote unquote takes in taxes. But those of you who have watched me before know federal government doesn't require taxation to spend money. Federal government is the currency issuer. Okay, so there's some people out there that try to create straw man arguments against the things I'm saying and that I'm not saying, or more importantly, at a macro level, the things that MMT supposedly says or does not say. MMT does not say that you can just run a deficit no matter what the other parameters are. MMT talks about sectoral balances. Yes, you can print money, you can spend money, you can continue to spend money and try to create an inflationary situation. The US government has not come anywhere close to that. In fact, they have cut spending so much, even with that trade deficit, that there is nothing filling the tub back up. So if you think about that for a minute, we are literally sabotaging our economy with a combination of austerity, aka cutting government spending, and B, deciding that we are going to be a trade net importer. We are sending our dollars out of the economy, and it's neither good nor bad. So I understand the unhappy faces going across, but listen, it depends. Everything is always coming down to it depends. If you want to be a net importer, you have to do certain things to buffer your economy to be a net importer. We have the ability to give every single person in this country a job, whether we import or export. We could be the employer of last resort. We could create infrastructure spending bills that would give people jobs. There's no reason we all have to be in a Hershey's chocolate factory creating wrappers. There isn't. So it all comes down to, what do you want? Do you want to be the one stamping aluminum and creating the car bodies? Or would you rather be creating a healthy society? Would you rather be an educator? Would you rather do these other things that we can certainly do? So again, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is, if you have these conditions, then you have to do these things to stay alive. It's not good or bad, it's just that there's a prescription each time you do something. For example, let's say we had full employment, and let's say we were a net exporter. In other words, more money is coming into our country than is leaving it. At that point in time, we would want to not spend in deficit mode, because we would want to make sure that our economy did not overheat. So we would slow down the government spending and allow the market itself to function on its own at some point in time, depending on whether you have full employment or underemployment or unemployment, whether or not you are actually sending goods and services out of the country that are bringing money back in, etc. So I think that if you understand that I'm not saying, nor is anybody else in MMT saying, to just spend till the cows come home. We're saying that the situation is right now, and could be at another time, to absolutely infuse massive amounts of money into the economy, because we have such a huge 500 billion annual trade deficit. Do you understand what I'm saying? If we have a trade deficit, we can spend. If we have unemployment, we can spend. If we have full employment and we still have a trade deficit, we can spend. If we have full employment and a trade surplus, we have to cut spending. Now we have to slow it down. Or we have to be accepting of a little teeny bit of inflation. Or maybe the Federal Reserve would jack up the lending rates to slow and cool the economy down to keep inflation at a level that you want it to be. Remember, it's not always this or always that. It's just the point that given sectoral balances and understanding that we have vast amounts of money leaving this country and none coming back in, because we're a net importer. And because money is leaving this country, we have got to fill the bathtub back up with water, aka dollars, so that it keeps producing jobs, so it keeps producing benefits for our society. It's really pretty simple. It's a difficult task to understand, because some of these concepts are maybe a little bit outside of your normal everyday thinking, but that's okay. We'll get through it together, because it's that important, and we got to learn it so that we can make sure people don't tell us lies and try and get away with cutting spending on Social Security, cutting spending on, I don't know, medical care. All the different things that we say we can't afford, we have established repeatedly, yes, we can indeed afford it. And anybody that said otherwise is either A, ignorant, or B, an effing liar. This is Steve with Real Progressives, hoping you learned a little something about sectoral balances.